Welcome everyone to this second session of Introduction to KiCad and FreeCAD at Hackaday U. Today we'll start off with a quick schematic review and then we'll follow it up with using a bitmap to component converter that allows us to take images and convert them to symbols and footprints. We'll add these custom symbols to a library that we created last time. We'll then finish off the symbol to footprint association in our schematic. We'll start footprint editor and create a new footprint library where we'll add the two custom symbols that we have created. We'll export the netlist from eSchema and then we'll start off PCB new where we'll look at the toolbar and the different layers. We'll do page settings, board layout and setup. We'll then import the netlist from eSchema. Once we have the paths, we'll figure out how to move them, how to rotate them, how to flip them. And once all the paths are placed, we can then add a board outline or an edge cut layer. With that done, we can then assign net classes and set track widths for the different nets that the board will be using. We'll then follow it up with the actual routing of the tracks by connecting all the different paths to each other. We'll also see how a zone can be added, which sometimes is also known as a fill or a pore. And then we'll clean up the silk layer so that it is more legible. We get rid of unnecessary information. We'll also look at how we can create a fabricate layer with additional information that will help us during assembly, for example. There are some toolbar icons available in KiCad that allow for better visual control when you're doing a complex design. So we'll look at that, including the high contrast mode. We'll create a 3D view of our board and wrap it up with doing a design rules check that will confirm if there are any errors in our board. And with that, we'll wrap up session 2 today. Starting off KiCad, starting off eSchema. And here's where we were last session. We placed all the parts, we wired up all the pins, labeled all the nets, added annotation, added values. We did a quick look at how buses work, but I've added a better example on the projects page at hackaday.io, so check that out. We also saw how to make hierarchical sheets, and that's where we left off. Before we move on to the PCB layout, a couple of things that we should quickly add over here. First, we need to add a couple of mounting holes, and we do that by using the regular add paths command using the alphabet A. That brings up your library browser, and once it loads up like so, you can look for mounting holes. This one is a mounting pad with an input connection, so we can use this to connect it to ground. Click OK, place it somewhere over here, zoom in a bit, press escape once. I'd like to hide the name mounting hole pad, so double click on it, uncheck visible, click OK. And since I'd like to connect it to ground, let's place a power port over here for ground. So click P for power ports, look for GND, select this, click OK, and paste it here. So that's one mounting hole. We can do the block copy and duplicate command now. That's your block, right click, duplicate, let's say second, and then repeat it once again so we get 4 mounting holes. Let's quickly annotate this by using the annotate schematic symbols icon, click annotate, close. So we have these 4 holes numbered. Next thing I'd like to do is to add some logos to the PCB layout. But it also helps if you have corresponding logos placed on the schematics. That's easy to do. Let me save this first. And in Project Manager, if you look at the bitmap to component converter, fire that up, and it has 3 tabs: the original, grayscale, and black and white. Keep a look on the black and white because that's what the library symbol or the footprint is going to look like when you place it in KiCad. First of all, let's load up a bitmap. So click on load bitmap. You should have a JPEG or a PNG available. So I've already downloaded the Hackaday skull and wrenches and the Hackaday text as PNGs. Let me start with Hackaday text. This is the original and this is the black and white. If you can see something like this, then make sure that the negative checkbox is not marked. Next, let's look at the bitmap info. You will see that the size is 268 mm by about 37 mm at a resolution of 96 dpi. Now we need to play around with this to get the desired final dimension of the logo or icon that you want. 500 dpi brings it down to 51.5. So apply the same number to the y-axis. Next step, we need to export the bitmap, and there are two different versions that we need to do. One is an eSchema library symbol, the other is a PCBnew footprint. So let's select eSchema library, click on export, and then place it here and give it a name called logo underscore hackaday. Let's save that. Then in export, let's select PCBnew and repeat the export again. Call it the same name, logo underscore hackaday, and this will be saved as a footprint file. Save it. So that's one image done. Let's load another one, the skull and wrenches. Open it. It's 101 mm wide. That's too big. I'm going to scale it down to about, let's say, 20 mm. Use 500 dpi. That gives me 19.2 mm wide, and use the same dpi for the other dimension. And then, as earlier, we first select eSchema, click on export, give it a name, logo underscore skull, and save this. Then select PCBnew, again export, give it a name, logo underscore skull, save that. We can close that now. Go back to our schematic editor and open up the symbol library editor like so. And if you remember, last time we created our own custom library called Tiny Blinky. So if I look for it, here it is, Tiny Blinky. I select that, then I click on File and I import the symbol that I have already saved earlier. Open it, here it comes. Now let's move the reference and the value slightly away from the center like so. Click on logo, M for move it up. Click on the reference, move it up like so. Let's give it a unique name instead of logo. So double click on logo and call it logo underscore hackaday. And if you'll notice, the reference has a hashtag G. Hashtag indicates that the part is a virtual part on the schematic side and will not be ported over when you start placing parts on the PCB. We want to actually assign a footprint to this. We're going to edit the reference by double clicking on hash G and removing the hashtag like so. That's done. Right click on the symbol and save it. Once it's saved, we can then repeat it with the skull by clicking on File, Import Symbol, select skull, open it, and once again double click on logo to give it a unique name, logo underscore skull, and remove the hashtag in the reference. Double click on hash G, remove hash, click OK. Right click over here and save it, and then let's right click on save the library as well. And once it's saved, we can close this, and now we can place these two symbols in our schematic somewhere over here. So we do that by adding parts, A for add parts, and in Tiny Blinky library I have logo hackaday. Select OK, place it here, click somewhere else, repeat it again, skull, OK, and place it here. Now, because these are parts, they need annotation. If so, let's do that quickly. Annotate schematic symbols, annotate, close. So these two, name and logo, have now been annotated. Save it once. And at this point, we're pretty much done with the schematic, except for one last step before we move to circuit board design, and that is to assign footprints to all of the symbols. As we saw last time, some parts already have footprints associated with them. For example, the ATtiny, you click E to edit the part, you'll see the footprint is a DIP8 package. On the other hand, some of the parts like the resistor, E for edit, don't have a footprint associated with it. As usual with KiCad, there are several different ways of doing it. The traditional way up until very recently was to use a program called CVPCB, which is accessed by this icon over here that says assign PCB footprints to schematic symbols. And it opens up in this new window. Oops, yeah. And there are three panes over here. On the left is a list of all of the footprint libraries installed on your system. In the middle is the components on your schematic. So we need to now assign footprints over here. And for example, the first one is battery. So you select the battery library. On the right pane, you look for something that's appropriate, like so. But you can't really see what this looks like. And to do that, you have to click this icon that says view the selected footprint that shows this up. If you want to see the 3D view, you have to click on this that says 3D display that shows this up and so on. So not the best way of assigning footprints. It can be quite confusing and frustrating to do this. The other way is to add a footprint directly to a part. For example, if we go here to the resistor, we can click E for edit. And once the symbol properties come up, you can click on footprint. You can click on the browse icon. You can go to a certain library and select a package and assign that. But again, this can be not very easy to use because it's likely that you'll end up missing certain paths. So not again the best way of doing this. The easiest way right now is to use this toolbar icon called edit symbol fields. Once you do that, you get a table with reference, value, footprint, and quantities listed out. And over here, it's pretty easy to start adding the footprints. For multiple references which have the same value, you can either use the same footprint or assign different footprints. So with that, let's start adding footprints for all of these parts. First one is battery. You're going to use a 2032 coin cell, but it's likely that we can't find a footprint for two batteries in series. But let's use whatever we can find right now, and maybe later on we can edit and modify it to suit our requirement. Here's 2032 times 1. So let's use this, double click here, and that's added as a footprint for the battery. Next is the electrolytic capacitor. Click on browse, go to capacitor through hole symbols. We're looking for a radial electrolytic. Here it is. And something like an 8 mm diameter, a 3.5 mm pitch. So let's choose that. And this is where it's handy to have data sheets available for the components that you're going to use. We now need a footprint for the disk capacitor. So it's going to be a capacitor disk. Here it is, 5 mm by 2.5 mm by 2.5. Looks good enough. The logos, we still haven't created a custom footprint library yet, so we'll come back to this a bit later. Mounting holes, again, go to browse. There should be a library called mounting holes. A 3 mm mounting hole with wires in it. Let's use this. Click on this. The D out is a 3-pin socket. So let's look at connector pin socket in 0.1 inch pitch, and we need a vertical one. So it's going to be 1x3 vertical like so. Let's choose that. SPI is a 2x3 male header, and we need a vertical. Oops, that's for this one. And choose that. So that's your SPI or program header. VN is a 2-pin socket. So again, go to browse, go to pin sockets 2.54 and 1x2 vertical here. So that's VN. 5 volt is the same, so I can probably just copy this and paste it here. 330 ohm resistor, eggshell. So go to browse, scroll down to resistor, THT through hole. Looking for eggshell resistor. That's about what a quarter watt or a 1/8 watt resistor would be. So let's select that, copy this and paste it for the second resistor. The push button switch. We're looking for switches, but in KiCad, they come under buttons for some reason. Not. We're looking for a 6 mm push button switch. So 6 mm switch with a 5 mm button height. Choose that. So let's apply and continue. Let's save it. And now let's figure out how to have a custom footprint library similar to the custom symbol library. We can do that from within eSchema itself. This toolbar icon starts the footprint editor. So we click on that. It loads up all the existing footprint libraries like so. And we'd like to first start off with creating a new library. So file, new library. It already gives a handy name called tinyblinky.pretty. So let's just save it and select it as a project specific library, not a global one. Click on OK. So we now have created an empty library. So we can click there once and then click on File, Import from a KiCad file, and then choose the two KiCad module footprints that we had exported earlier from the bitmap to component converter. That was in this folder under KiCad. Here they are. So Hackaday, open. We can now save this. The name logo Hackaday goes in the library called Tiny Blinky, which is down here. Click it once and then save. And then we can repeat this process with the skull. Click on File, Import Footprint, select the skull footprint, click on Open, and then File, Save as the logo skull, put it in the library called Tiny Blinky, save it. And now we have these two parts saved within the Tiny Blinky library. So that's done. We can just close this. And we can then go back to assign footprints in the edit symbol fields table, select skull, click on browse, scroll down to select the Tiny Blinky library, which should be down here now. So here's the skull. Then I repeat for the text, Hackaday, there you go. So we now have all the footprints assigned for all of the symbols on this schematic. We can click apply and then OK, and then save it once. At this point, we are done with the schematic completely. And we can go over to making the PCB layout. And once again, in KiCad, as usual, there are two different ways of doing this. The earlier traditional way, which I will just show for purposes of how it works, is to create a netlist. And you do that by selecting this toolbar icon called Generate Netlist. The default options work. Click Generate. It creates a file name called tinyblinky.net. Save that, and that's your netlist created. Every time you make any change in the schematic, you must regenerate the netlist. But with the current versions of KiCad, you can actually do away with creating a netlist by just directly jumping over to creating the circuit board layout like so by clicking on this toolbar icon called Run PCB New. So once you do that, we presented with the blank slate of the PCB New editor. So on the left are some generic toolbar icons. On the top are the ones that are system specific, things like zoom and copy and a couple of libraries and so on. And then finally, a few specific icons related to KiCad. I will get to these when we have to use them. And on the right is the toolbar that you'll use to actually draw and lay out your circuit boards. If you're also seeing an additional toolbar like so, that's the microwave and stripline generator toolbar. When not needed, you can disable it by clicking the icon on the left that says the microwave toolbar. There's also the layers manager, and layer manager has two tabs, layers and items. So from the top, we have front copper and bottom copper. These are the two copper layers. Then there are the two silk layers, front and back. Then there are the two mask layers, front and back. These are the technical layers. Then there's a drawing layer where you can add some elements like dimensions, for example, or special notes that need to be added just for your reference, for example. But this is not something that you would send to a fabrication facility for making your PCB. The edge cuts is an important layer. This is what defines the outline of your circuit board. And then there's few other non-technical layers like margins and courtyards and fabricate. The fabricate layer, the lower two, is useful to generate assembly drawings, for example. And the other tab is items. You can either individually show or hide certain elements. This is handy when you're laying out tracks and you don't want to get distracted. So play around with these and see how it affects the view of your layout. The other thing you can do is the blue triangle you see is the current active layer. You click on the color patch for any layer, and that's where the blue triangle moves, and that is the active layer. A different way is to use this pull down menu from the top, which does the same. If you'd like to change the colors, you double click on the color patch like so, and that brings up the color picker where you can adjust the color values. Opacity is useful if you're trying to work in a complex board and you want to see multiple layers at the same time. Like in eSchema, we should first start with setting the page settings. So that's the third icon from the top. It says page settings. You push today's date to the issue date. At the revision rev 1, title is tiny underscore blinky company. I can add Hackaday comment. I can add introduction to KiCad and KiCad. So that's your title box. The other important thing to do is to select the second icon, which is the board setup, and this is important. This defines several things. You first start with the number of layers you want to have. The default is 2 layers. You can also set the PCB thickness, and you can also define the layers that you want visible in your design. You can add default text line thicknesses for the different layers. Check with your PCB fabrication facility. And then design rules. Again, depends on your board house and the kind of design that you're doing. So add these values in based on data you receive from your board house. Net classes. This allows you to set up different track widths, for example. So if you have a plus 5 volt rail and you want it to have a thickness of 20 mil, for example, you can do that using this dialog over here. So this is the default that you get, a default class with 8 mil clearance and 10 mil track width. But I can add my own by clicking on the plus icon, and I can call this 15 mil as the name of my class. And the only difference between default and this is that the width of the track is 15 mil instead of 10. I can then add a third one called 20 mil, where the track width is 20. So I have 3 classes now, default, 15 mil and 20 mil. What I can do next is, because I still haven't imported my net, I don't see any nets over here, but we can apply certain classes to certain nets. Tracks and vias. So the default you see is 10 mils, but you can add extra track thicknesses here. I usually add the same ones that I have listed here in net classes. So I'll add a 15 mil track and I'll add a 20 mil track. And then you can make some settings for mask clearances and paste clearances. So that's the board setup. Let's click on OK with that. And the other thing to then set is your grid. Usually, in my case, if I'm working on through-hole designs, I make sure that I stick to imperial units because most of the through-hole components are in 0.1 inch pitch. If I'm doing surface mount design, I stick to metric. If it's a hybrid design, then I decide either one depending on which components are in the majority. Since this design that we're doing is going to be mostly through hole, we will use imperial units, and we start off with a grid spacing of 25 mil. And it's important that you choose a coarse grid when you start off placing the parts, and then go down to finer grid settings only when you're laying tracks. KiCad can do this in two ways. One is the netlist method. We exported a netlist in eSchema, and over here, if I click on load netlist, it asks me where the location of that netlist file is. I can click on the browser, click on this, click on open, and ask it to use this as the starting point for my circuit board layout. The other way is to use the second toolbar icon here, which is update PCB from schematic. This bypasses the need to have a netlist and directly pulls information from the schematic. Once I click on it, update PCB, and then close it, and you have all of the paths imported from your schematic in one bunch, which you can place it somewhere else. And then click somewhere else once, so you deselect that whole group. If you zoom in, you'll see a lot of these white lines connecting different parts. Those are the air wires or the rat's nest. And you can either make it visible or hide it by choosing the hide board rat's nest toolbar icon on the left. The rat's nest hidden, and here's the rat's nest shown. Now, there are a couple of different ways of starting off from here, because from here onwards, a lot of it is more of art and less of science. A lot depends on how you want to place the parts. Each part can be placed in multiple orientations and on different sides of the board, and so on. You might have a specific outline in mind, or there might be other restrictions on where certain components need to be. So there is very little that can be taught about how that part of the process works. It's something you gain with experience, and you get better at it by practice. There is no other way than doing this. Once you're satisfied with the parts being placed where they need to be, is when you start drawing the tracks and the rest of the stuff. And then you finally add an outline to the board. The other way around is to start with an outline. That means you already constrain the size and the dimension that you want the PCB to be. And then you start adding and moving parts within that outline to suit your preferences. For today, we are just going to place the parts first, how we want them to be, and then add an outline around it. Again, as in eSchema, you'll notice at the bottom are the coordinates being shown. The coordinates in capital X and Y are absolute with respect to the top left corner of your page, but the dx and dy are relative and can be made 0 at any point. So that's very handy when you're placing parts and so on. Also, similar to eSchema, you can move a part by hovering your mouse somewhere over the part and then pressing the M key. And you'll notice the part gets highlighted. The mouse cursor then moves to the anchor point or the center usually of the part, and you can now move it. At this point, you can rotate the part by using the R key. So R, so that's rotation. If I want to place this part on the bottom layer, I press F for flip. And if I press F again, it comes back to the top layer. So let's just start placing these parts. I'm going to start from somewhere here. It's absolute X2 and Y2 and rotate it like so. Click it once and there it goes. If your rotation is in 90 degrees, then you can go to preferences again. On PCB new, whether you want the rotation angle to be 90 degrees or lower. So that's how the preferences are set. So we have the battery. That's there's going to be an input capacitor. Let's hold the mouse over there, click M once, bring it near the battery holder, and we'll have to now figure out what will be the most ideal orientation. Probably move it 90 degrees like so and keep it somewhere over here. Then we have the LDO, which is U2 over here. Click on it once, M for move, bring it around somewhere over here. Probably I want to rotate this 270 degrees like so. Place it somewhere over here so we have some space to add a small copper pore around it for heat sinking. And then we can add the capacitor. You can even do search for it, or control F. Click on C2 once, move it, and place it once again. Probably rotate it 90 degrees and place it somewhere over here. There were two headers, the V in, this one. So let's click that once, move, and probably add it over here like so, in which case I'd like to move these parts a bit away. So select that block, click M to move this block a bit like so. Then grab this header, bring it in somewhere over here like so. We can play around with placements till kingdom come, but really let's just, yeah, keep it there. So that's input, and there's also an output header. Here it is, the 5-volt one. So click on that once, M for move, place it here near where the output capacitor is, rotate it like so, place it here. The next important element in our design is the ATtiny, so let's grab that. Click on it once, M for move, bring it over here, rotate it 90 degrees like so, put it approximately here, and we can move it around later as we refine our placements. The next item would be the programming header, so let's get that. PI header J2, click on it once, M to move, bring it here, and maybe again rotating it 90 degrees, so kind of leave it here. Next, let's get the input part done. So here's the switch, click on the switch once, move. So I decide on where a part needs to be depending on how the air wires show me the connections. So a lot of decisions you do on the fly. Put it over here, click it once, and that's the switch. So here's another thing, you click on R1 over here, and then you click over here, which takes you back to eSchema. You'll notice that part gets highlighted in the schematic. Or if I select R2 over here, and then go to PCB new, then R2 gets highlighted in PCB new. Click on it once, M to move it, control scroll, zoom in, rotate to 70 degrees like so, and place it here. We can now add the output resistor and the LED. So that's R1, move it, probably rotate it to 70 and place it somewhere over here. Then we can add the 3 LEDs. So we start with D1, select on D1 once, click M to move it, rotate it once, 90 degrees like so, and just leave it here. We'll have to move this again to fine tune its placement. Let's choose D2, click on it once, M to move it, rotate so it lines up with D1, and that's Y equals 2. Move this in like so. There goes. Press spacebar here. And now I can place the other two LEDs equidistant from D2. Over mouse over D1, click once, M to move it, and put it 0.4 inches away from D2. And then we can take D3, click on it once, M to move, rotate 90 degrees below D2, so 2.4. And finally, we have the output connector. So let's figure out where we can put this. Maybe just leave it here in the middle. All right, so that's most of the parts located. Let's save this board. And we now only have the 4 mounting holes and the 2 logos to be placed. So we can worry about that a bit later. It's probably time to make an outline for this board first. To draw the outline, we have to select the edge cuts layer, and like I said, make sure that you are at a pretty coarse grid. And the next step is to select the add graphic lines toolbar icon that lets you draw the edge cuts. So let me move back close to where the battery connector is at a y coordinate of 2 inches and an x coordinate of 1.6. Let me start drawing my outlines. Let me make this relative 0, and then I can start drawing the outline. Click once, and you can watch the dx and dy coordinates arrive at a suitable dimension. Dy is minus 0.7, so that's good enough. Let's move along the x-axis until we reach here, so that's 2.8 inches. Then move down to dy 0.7 inches. Move in the negative x direction until you reach dx is 0. Then zoom in here and double click here to close this outline. You'll notice the white circle alignment target that pops up. That's the end of the line. So double click over here and then escape. Let's save this again. Now let's quickly see if this is enough space to have all the 4 mounting holes put in the corners. If not, we might have to move some parts around. So let's click escape to get out of the edge cuts drawing mode. Click on mounting hole once, select it, and then press M to move. Let's see if we have enough space here. Not really. This is going to be quite a squeeze. So we might have to increase the width and the height of the board. So let's just place it out here somewhere and move our components a bit around. I'm going to start off with moving this capacitor closer to the voltage regulator, input pin header like so, and moving this battery holder further inset. And then let me move these parts towards the battery holder. I can either grab them as a group or just do one at a time. Move the resistor, move this IC, move the second resistor, grab the switch, move it a bit, grab the programming header, move that. We can move this header and keep it aligned with this. So let me place it here, press spacebar, and then I can move along the x-axis and leave this header here. And now let's move this capacitor, select it, M to move it, place it somewhere like so. Okay, let's try another way. Let's see if rotating them makes better. Okay, let's move this here, rotate this, and make sure this is 0. So move it here, press spacebar, and move it like so. Okay, it'd be easier if I rotated 180 degrees like so. And then do the same with this, and move this as well, and move it plus 0.32. Probably just move them further like so. Move this as well like so. Now maybe we can see if we can move this footprint and have space here for the mounting hole. Maybe you can make some more space by moving this voltage regulator, moving this pin header here, and moving this capacitor like so. Like so. Then maybe this has enough space to move this footprint. Let me select the center of the footprint, press spacebar so I get a reference for where its location is, and then press escape. Now I can place the second mounting hole, that's H2, and scooch it up here like so. So that's the second one. Here's the third one. Choose the footprint, move it, bring it like so. And the fourth one, select the footprint, move it, place it like so. Let's save this. It seems it'll be nice if we can make the board wider a bit, because the mounting holes are too close to the battery holder. So here's a little trick with KiCad. The parts that get selected depend on the direction in which you move your mouse. So if I start from the top here and move down like this, you will see that the edge cuts line didn't get selected. But if I repeat it from the other side, which means start from the bottom and move up like so, the edge cuts line gets selected. And it works with all paths. You move it down, it doesn't select. You move it up like so, it selects. So let's move this edge cut line and move it down by so. So this is at a dy of 0.78. Let me make it to 0.8 like so. And then I can choose this one, bottom to top, move it negative 0.8 like so. So let's move these lines. I can select this line, hover my mouse over the end point of this segment and then drag it like so. And then repeat this process with the other one over here. Choose this. Let's drag this one as well by grabbing the end point and pulling it here. Then scrolling up, dragging the other end point and pulling it up like so. Press home and you zoom all, and that's the new board outline. We can now move the mounting holes. Just click on this one, select footprint, move it, and like so. So that gives us enough clearance between the mount hole and the battery holder. And repeat that with move this one, select it, aim to move, like so, scroll down, select this, aim to move, and like so. You'll notice with the parts that are placed, for example, let me choose one, the capacitor. There are some items that are on the fabricate layer. If you hide the F fab, the front fab like so, you'll notice those elements disappear. And if you choose the front silk, there are other items that disappear. And then finally, there's the courtyard, which is over here. Courtyard is useful to ensure that you don't have parts that overlap each other. And KiCad will warn you if you have design with overlapping courtyards. So let's hide the layers that we don't need at the moment. We don't need the front and back fab. We don't need the front and back courtyards. We can leave the top silk. And now we can start routing the board. Routing is fairly straightforward. You first select the layer, front copper or bottom. With a two-layer board, you can select layers with page up and page down as well. So here's page down and here's page up. You use the root tracks toolbar icon to start laying tracks. Now, because we have not yet set up the board rules or the board setup, let's revisit that part and see how we can assign track thicknesses to specific nets. So here's the board setup tool, and we go to net classes, and you'll notice now that I have the net list imported in my board. I have all of them listed over here, and currently they all have a net class of default, which means they will all be tracks of 10 mils with a clearance of 8 mils. But let's say we want the power tracks to be wider, so definitely 5 volt and ground, and maybe even the VIN. We can adjust that over here. Click on the net class, you get a drop down list, select 20, and that changes the 5 volt net to a 20 mil net class. The others are signals, so we can leave them as they are, except for ground, and select that as 20 mil. And this one, VIN, select that as 20 mil. All right, so this is how you assign net classes, and then click OK. We are now pretty much ready to start the routing. So let's click on the track routing icon. We are already on the front layer, and now we can start drawing our tracks. And if the bottom, you'll notice that we have 88 pads on our design. As of now, there are no wires or track segments. We have a total of 13 nets and a total of 43 tracks that need to be connected. And the task now is to go from 43 to 0. So let's start again. Over here, there is really no science to it. I mean, there are certain conventions that you use in terms of track layout and so on. But this is pretty much something you get with practice. So let's just start drawing tracks, selecting the ones that are closest to each other. For example, here's VN connects to this connector J3. From there, it goes to this capacitor. From there, goes to the input of the LDO. These two pads of the LDO connect to each other. They also go to the output header, and the 5 volt also goes to the output filter capacitor. I'll be leaving out ground pins at the moment because later on we'll add a ground pore or copper fill on the bottom layer. So that's pretty much the power supply done. Let's look at the programming header now. And I like to tackle things in blocks like this, one at a time. So here's A1 going to A1 like so. Here's A2 going to A2 like so. You'll notice the track didn't come exactly in the center of these two pads. That's because my grid is at 20 mil. And as I said, when you're drawing tracks, you can go to a finer grid setting, but make sure that you go back to the coarser one when you're doing things like edge cuts or placing parts and so on. If I want to drag this track, I can place my mouse over it, D for drag, and then I can move it around like so. And this effect you're seeing is what is known as interactive routing, where the track goes around any offending obstacles that it finds. And we'll take a look at it a little bit later. I can again maybe increase this chamfer a bit by putting the mouse here, D to drag, and then I can drag it like so. So that's the second track laid out. A0 goes here, so let me do this. You notice the unrouted has now come down to 34. We started off with 43 and we're down to 34. What's next? We have A3. So this is where A3 starts from. Do this and there. So those are the four connections from the ATtiny to the program header complete. We can then look at the input, which is this one over here. Pin number 2 is going to the resistor. So I can do this like so, connect it here. Then can connect these two together, connect these two together, and this one. We can connect the two 5 volt pads like so. Connect 5 volt of the ATtiny like so. Let me drag this down a bit like so. And then let's look at the output. So pin number 3 goes to this resistor. The other pin of the resistor goes to the input of the RGB LED. The output of the RGB LED goes to the input of the next LED. And from second to the third, like so. And then finally the output of the last LED goes to the output header like so. And let's connect the 5 volt to all of these three LEDs. Start from D1 and that's 1, 2, and 3 of them connected. Let's connect 5 volt like so here, and probably we can snake 5 volt through here, and bring it to this header. So at this point, looks like we are done pretty much with all of our routing. What we can do now is move to the bottom layer using the page down key. And even before we do a copper pour, it makes sense to draw tracks connecting all the ground pins. I usually do it more for safety than anything else. I don't depend solely on the ground pour to connect all the points. I first make sure that I can physically connect a track between all of the points, and once all of the tracks are drawn, then I add the actual zone itself. So I am selected the bottom layer. I can now select the route tracks option, and I can make sure that I start drawing the ground track. So here's one, goes over here, ground from the capacitor goes here, ground from the capacitor goes to ground of the 80 tiny, also goes to the capacitor, and also goes to the output connector. From there we can connect like so, drag this here, and then drag this back so it makes a nice 45-degree angle like so. All right, let's add the 4 corner pads. So we can just draw from here to here, here to here, here to here. Ground from the program header goes here. For the ground connections for the RGB LEDs, it will be wise to just add wires. So the way you work with wires is you choose the route tracks option, start on the top layer, so press page up, click on the pad once to start a track like so, and then once you are ready to place a wire, press V on the keyboard for wire, or right click and select place through hole wire. All right, so I'm going to press V and place the wire somewhere over here, and then press the end key to end this track. Same thing with the second LED. I press page up, start a track, press V for wire, and when I'm satisfied where it needs to be, press enter and then end. So that ends the second wire. And then I repeat the same for the third one. Press page up, click here to start the track, press V for wire, click once, and then end to end the wire over there. At this point, maybe we can actually add the copper port. We still have several unrouted tracks, but that'll reduce once we add the copper port now. So press escape once, and copper port or zone in KiCad is done using this toolbar icon, add filled zones. It's a little bit unintuitive how this works. Click on it once, click on a corner where you want to start the zone once. I like to prefer somewhere outside the board, like so. And then it brings up a dialog box where you select, first of all, which layer your pour needs to be on. So right now it's already selected the bottom layer. And then on that layer, which net needs to be connected. So we want ground, so select that. If you need corner smoothing, you can select chamfers or fillets and add a value to the distance for that, like 5 mils. Zone priority is useful if you have multiple zones, and if you have zones inside of other zones, then you would like the internal zones to have a higher priority so that they always get filled first before the zones outside of that. And then there's other parameters like the clearance and the minimum width and so on. So play around with these settings to see how it affects the ground port. But for now, the default values are good. Click on OK. So you can then drag. Let me change my grid. So right click and grid, bring it back to 20, like so. And click it here once, and you'll notice you get a blue polygon. Click it here once, and double click here to get the zone or the ground port. And you'll notice that we're now down to 4 unrouted nets. Let's move back to the top layer by pressing the page up key and seeing what are we missing in terms of connections. We missed out a ground connection for the LDO, so let's add a track there. So in the top layer, I select route tracks. I click on the ground pad and just connect it to this pin header over here, which is already a ground pin, so I don't need to add a wire over there. I have 3 unconnected tracks. Now, the ground of the batteries is on the top layers. We need a way to connect that. Usually I prefer to do it this way. I start a track from here in the center and just do this and repeat it on the other side as well. Start from here, like so. So 2 unrouted nets. One is the connection from one side of the VIN pad to the other side of the battery holder, which is also VIN. But technically these would be already connected because of the metal body of the battery connector. So we can ignore this one unrouted net. But let's see, what we have left out is providing 5 volts to the ATtiny. Certain times it is helpful that you want to view or hide certain elements on your board, and a lot of those options are available here in the left toolbar. First one is show filled areas in zones, and if you want to refill a zone or update a zone, pressing B on the keyboard will refill a zone like so. Now, if you want to hide the zone, the second icon on the left toolbar over here will allow you to hide a zone. The first one will unhide it again. I usually find fill and unfill pretty useful, like so. You can also fill and unfill pads using this command. So that is unfilled pads and this is filled pads. Same thing with the wires. So here they are. Here's the wire in hollow mode and here's the wire in solid mode. And same thing with tracks. Here tracks in outline mode, tracks in filled mode. This one is a high contrast display. Let me try and show you how that works. So this is the top layer. If I press page down, this is the bottom layer. If I go to front silk, this is the silk layer. So the selected layer is highlighted and the others are grayed out. To see where a net is going all over the board, you can choose the highlight net icon and then clicking that net like so. So this shows me where the ground net is snaking through this whole board. If I choose the plus 5e, which is over here, it shows me where the plus 5e net is snaking through this whole board. So this is net highlighting. If you want to unhighlight it again, just click somewhere else on the canvas and it comes out of highlight mode. Now, if I click on a segment once, I select that particular segment. If I want to select this whole net, I can then press the I key, which will include the whole track. All right, let's see how we can get this last connection made. Doesn't look like, let me try and use the highlight mode. Let's see if there's any way we can get those two connected. Okay, I see a way out here. I select page up, select place tracks. I start out here, and if you notice that your track is going at a different orientation than you'd like it to start with, then press the slash key. Yeah, so this is what happens when you press the slash key. It changes orientation. Like it over here and press end to end it over there. So at this point, I have everything connected. Let me get out of highlight mode. There, let me save this. And there's only one last net unconnected. We can actually connect it just to make sure that we have everything done. So let me start from this pad over here. I want to keep it away from the battery as much as I can. So uh, let me end it here. All right, so as of now, if you see at the bottom, you'll see that we have 0 unrouted tracks now. We're done pretty much with the track routing now. And let's add the two logos. So I can click on the skull icon once, click on F to flip it, and it's disappeared because my bottom silk is hidden over here. So once I uncheck that, I can see that it's visible again. I can then move it, rotate it maybe 270 degrees like so, and probably add it over here like this. Move it, flip it like so. Like this. And if I'm doing that, I probably should rotate this logo. Do it more than I should. One more. Yep. And then move it like so. Make sure I choose G2 and move that Y 2.0. Press home, save it. And at this point, our layout is pretty much done. If you like, you can take a look at the 3D render. Click on View, 3D Viewer, and that's the 3D view of your circuit board. There's just one footprint that's missing in 3D view. That's the battery holder, but we'll see if we can add that later. Let's just clean up the silk legend because that's going to be important. So I'm going to hide the front and the bottom copper layers and the mask layers as well, but keep the silk layers visible. I can also hide the bottom because there are no parts besides the two logos over there. So let's hide that. Let me actually enable the front layer so I can know where the pads are. And then if I need, I can go to items and hide tracks like so. So now I can start placing the reference values, example battery, replace it here. Also make sure that all text is at a uniform orientation. C1, I like to place it near the positive pin. J3, just rotate it 90 degrees, keep it here. If you find that there is certain text like J4, if you notice after I move it, it flips over and it doesn't allow me to place it upside down. I can only place it upright. That setting is, if I click on this text J4 and press E, that brings up the text properties for this piece of text, which is J4. And you'll notice here a checkbox that says keep upright. If you uncheck it, you can turn a piece of text upside down if you want to. So if I click OK here, you'll notice that it has now possible to place this in any orientation that I want. So here it is, J4. U2, let me select that, move it near its tab pin. The mounting holes, I don't want the references visible, so I can click on H4, E for edit, uncheck visible, and say OK. Double click H2, uncheck visible, OK. All right, so that's that. I can then take reference R2 and move it inside the rectangle like so. I can take U1, move it inside like so. I can take R1, move it here. Same thing with D3, click, aim to move, rotate, click once and place it. Finally, J1, click once, M, rotate, and place it near pin number 1. So that's the Silk legend cleaned up. Now the next layer I'd like to clean up is the fabrication layer, which is over here. So let's hide the front and back silk layers, bottom copper, tracks. So this one is handy for assembly purposes. The certain text that we don't want on fabricate layers, such as the mounting hole pad text, I can just double click, uncheck visible, and say OK for all the 4 holes. And then I can move some of the text around and then move this like so. V in, move it like so here. At the center of V in is J3, so I can move it to location like so. That's C1. That's the value of C1, so I can probably move it here, rotate, and finally over here, click, rotate, one, click and rotate and place it near pin 1. So home and save. Now we would probably also like to add some descriptive text to some of these components. So we like to add polarities on the headers for sure. Let's hide front fab and enable front silk. And let's add polarities here so that there is lesser chance of any mishaps and releasing the magic smoke. And you can add text using the text icon that you see over here. And if you want the text tied into the footprint that you want it near, then it's best to add the text to the footprint properties itself. The way that works is you hover your mouse over a footprint and press E to edit it. And if you look at this table over here, you can add your own rows with specific text items that you need placed with this particular footprint. So I click on plus, plus, 5, minus, and it needs to be on the front silk layer, and click OK. You'll notice this text is placed over here. I can then click on it once and move it, rotate it like so, and keep it over here. If you like to play with the text dimensions, you can double click on the text like so and change the dimensions. For example, I can make it wider like so. Then we need to do the same thing for the other header, that's J4. So we probably should add text to the output header as well, J1. So double click on this J1 header and add text, and what we have is a ground by the out 5V. So those are the 3 connections on the front silk layer. Click OK. And then I select this text, aim to move R to rotate like so, and place it away or somewhere. Need to move it a little bit more like so. So there, so there's ground, D output, and 5 volts. And maybe we should add some text here for the programming header also, at least the indications for 5 volt and ground. So that's descriptive text added to as labels to existing footprints. At this point, we can run the electrical rules check. That's the ladybird icon, like any schema. Click on it once. You can set certain values, but the default ones work well. Just click run DRC. And depending on how things go, you would probably end up with no problems markers, or if there are any issues, it'll show up over here. Let's unhide and all of the layers. Thank you for watching this, and if you have questions, I can see you on office hour, and or you can post questions on the Hackaday.io project page, and I'll try and answer them.